Welcome to the lovely ladies of late night. This is a new reality for late night TV right here in your zone. I want to welcome on Maya Akai.
Here I am.
Hi, lovely ladies of late night. How are you?
Yes, we are an ensemble cast, which means it's going to grow over time.
Oh,
But
yes,
but I think it's kind of fitting that it starts with you and I, Shawn, because we go back.
we go way back.
We go way back. Cue up some Blackstreet. We go way back.
Way back. I'm so excited for this. This has been a long time coming.
Yes, it is.
And this,
So share with everybody what your vision is, like what we want to do with the ladies, lovely ladies of late night.
well, the vision at this time, and I do foresee that it's going to expand and change as we grow and as our listeners come in and we get feedback and we're interacting with the audience. The overall goal is to dominate the late night market in television because right now it's an all white male field. You have your Jimmy Kimmels, you have your Fallons. Um, Even if we go back to the Johnny Carsons and Ed McMahons, there are no women of color at night. They're all in the morning. Well, the lovely ladies of late night like to hang out. We want to stay current and positive with the things that are going on in the world. And ultimately, we want to package this nice and neatly and sell it to the networks.
There you go. So anybody who knows me, I'm trying really hard, Shawn, to differentiate who Maya is because Maya does a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
Maya talks sports. As you know, I've kind of coined myself as being your mental maven because that's what I do. But this is like the show for me that lets me to like really dive into real conversations with people. And I can put my mental health thing to the side. So I loved when I had a former coworker kind of chime in, super good stuff. Because by the way, if you want to comment and get interactive with the show, all you have to do is type your comment in, whether it's Facebook or YouTube. You type in the comments, and I can share it just like Michelle did. Hello, Michelle. It's been a long time.
Hi,
Have not seen you for a while. And then we can include your comments into the show. But for me, this is that great outlet that I can have those conversations that I don't generally have.
Yes.
When it comes to mental health,
Mhm.
or I'm not talking sports, I get down and dirty about stuff and really talk about what's going on in the world in the way that most men, guys, I'm going to tell you something, buckle up for safety.
Buckle up.
Because how we about to talk about this, you guys generally won't do it. So we're going to do it like that. We're going to get down.
We're going to go Mach 1. They say that in aviation. Going back.
I want to be DEF CON, if you want to know the truth. I want to be Pentagon. I want to be DEF CON like 5. I want everyone to be like, red alert, red alert. Oh my God. I've been looking for that place to have an outlet. So this is what the lovely ladies of late night is going to be about. We're going to have some fun conversations.
Fun.
But we're going to dive into what? Those complicated conversations too, in a way that's open, honest, and we're not judgmental here. We don't have to agree. That's the bottom line.
We can agree to disagree.
Yes, absolutely. Look, I got some friends checking in. Katie Piccolo, thank you for checking in. Love it. And Michelle, she's back. Look at this. We got all kinds of people. Oh my gosh. Now I feel extra special.
Hi, Pete.
Because Pete Stockmore, who's a doctor that I work with, just chimed in. So now I feel nervous. Like maybe I have to cut back. No, I'm not going to. Because it's late night and you're here, Pete, so I can be me.
And we're loose.
So good stuff. So it's a new project. You and I have talked about this. So we met, I don't know how many years
2005.
that we met about doing this project. And Shawn is a person who has rubbed elbows with everybody from Oprah to Tyler Perry. You name it, she's rubbed elbows. Tell everybody a little bit about you, because people probably know me because I'm streaming on my pages. But tell them who is Shawn? Who are you?
Well, I have a passion for radio and broadcasting.
Oh, she's thinking about it.
Oh yeah. I met Maya in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
We instantly clicked. We were in school together, and I've always wanted to reach the masses. My goal has been, and I'm the type of person who really feels like humanity should be all fluff and love, even though if you cut on the news or you go to where Maya works during the day, things are chaotic and a little disconnected.
Well, wait a minute, Shawn. You work for the city of Chicago. So where I work at is like It's peanuts compared to the drama that you deal with on a regular basis.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's a case altogether different. The city of Chicago is a different beast. Um, but my true passion, I believe that God put me at the city to hone my craft and to hone my skill and to enlarge my people skills. And now I can go out into the world now with you and just continue to do radio and television. I started out in gospel radio here in Chicago on WGX 1570 AM, which is known as the Big Gospel Express. I've written, authored two books, A
Hmm.
Tribute to Christ and God of Abalperism. And my key goal in life is to be the next generation's Oprah Winfrey, but bigger and better, and with more of a heart of gold, more compassion.
And we're gonna be raw. We're not gonna be Oprah. We're gonna be raw. We're gonna be honest. That's
We,
the difference.
that's why I said we're gonna. That's what I mean. When I say we're going to sew the fabric of humanity together. I'm going to stitch it together. Maya might stab it and cut it a little bit, but in the end, it's going to work out.
Look, and when it's and it's funny you say that because I'm a very open-minded person. I tell people, but I'm going to say what I think. But it doesn't mean that one thing I embrace in being, as I say, I'm your mental maven, is that being objective is extremely important.
Oh yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you something. We live in a world right now where people are truly at opposite positions about a lot of things.
Yes.
And so I think it's important to hear what people are saying. And I'll be honest, I'll tell people flat out, I get where people are coming from and why it's difficult to be able to understand things. But at the same time, I've had some conversations with people like, well, I get you feel this way, but let's put a historical perspective on how we got here. Here's the thing I think is interesting, Shawn, is most people are not necessarily historians.
That's
They
true.
don't know they don't know history. They don't know how we got to where we are. So I'm always willing to share where we got to where we are. Now mind you, I tell you, but if you don't believe me, do a little research on your own
Do your
and,
due diligence, right?
and do your due diligence and maybe you'll figure it out. So that's what we're gonna be. We're gonna be fun, lighthearted. We'll pull those conversations in. It's gonna be ensemble cast. So you're gonna get a little bit of difference between everybody. I'm that person who is like, I'm very ADHD in my existence. I tell people that all the time. I am a sportscaster. I worked in sports for the Score.
Yeah.
I covered sports, and here I do mental health stuff. I'm all over the place, and people are like, "I'm not sure what to think about you." I'm like, "But that's what happens when you're not afraid to pursue what you're interested in."
Exactly.
So
You're,
I pursue my
you're
interests.
open. You've always been open, Maya.
I've
Open,
always
direct.
Yeah, I've been guilty. I'm an only child, so you know how that works out.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know how that works out. So in our ensemble cast, you're going to meet married women, divorced women. I'm sorry, we're predominantly women, but we have got it slated for the show. We're going to do shows where we incorporate men into the conversation because we don't expect to be able to really be able to have that discussion about how men feel because men actually feel, believe it or not. So we're going to incorporate them in the conversation. I know, right? Men
They
feel.
actually feel.
They actually feel and not just see.
Because I always thought men were just visual. Maybe not too much feeling there.
Oh, it's under the surface. Maya is a jack of all trades. You're right, Katie. I am. I wear many hats. I can't help myself. It's who I am as a person. And you're going to find in the dynamics, I'm going to be the one who says to everybody in the group, "Ladies, please stop crying." Really? And Shawn is, and you know me. She's a crier. And I'm like, what are you crying for? What are you crying? So I'm always the person who's like challenging the over emotionalness, but even though I can be there too. So it's going to be a fun ensemble of people.
They have wine.
Well, I am having wine because it's after 10 o'clock.
I know.
And I am allowed to have that because somewhere we're beyond 5 o'clock. So
Yes, we are.
we're gonna have great guests. We're gonna like tap into people who are following their passions, especially in Chicago. So we're gonna have people who have wine companies they've created, and people who have these unique spaces with Airbnbs. I'm still in love with Kai Bendelay and their Airbnb, which by the way, we're right now like doing this kind of remote thing, but we're gonna be doing some more like stationary stuff where we get out and kind of be in places. So we're going to bring those kind of different movements as we do it.
The ladies of late night are going to be all over Illinois and other states. We may do some work in Colorado. We may do some work in California. You just never know where you're going to catch us. And we welcome you to come out and join us and be a part of the cast, right?
There you go, a part of the cast.
And don't forget the celebrities. We have got to bring you the celebrities.
Yeah, we have some celebrity guests on tap that will be
Yeah.
coming up soon.
Yeah.
We want to do them more in our locations, opposed to we want it to be way more intimate. So now that the world is opening up, we want to make sure when we do those interviews, it's a bit more intimate and we're not kind of like this. So I'm looking forward to our celebrity guests that will be on as well. Good stuff, Shawn.
I am.
So, what are some things that you right now? What's on your mind right now?
Well, I'm thinking about. I didn't really want to tap into this because I thought it would be too raw and too soon. I know you and I had previously discussed Derek Chauvin and the case and everything that's going on. I get these news alerts that come to my phone. It is so much that is going on all over the world. You can't even just say Chicago anymore. And it's some of the most heinous things. And it just bewilders me that what are people thinking? Where's the humanity? Why are people starving their children? Why are they locking people up? Why is this guy um like I really want to get to the meat of it. Like I heard some of the parts of the case, but I have my own feelings as to why he did what he did. And it's nothing that I heard. It's just me doing deductive reasoning. Maybe he did it because of this. As far as George Floyd. I heard that they were bouncers together at a nightclub. And I said to myself, there has to be another connection here that the world doesn't know about. And they say, oh, they worked at the same club, but they didn't know each other. Come on, no. When people work together, you may not interact with that person socially, but I'm pretty sure everybody's heard of M.A.Y.A at your job, whether they've interacted with you or not, or whether they know you on a personal level. You kind of come up with your own synopsis as to whether you like somebody or not. Just like with me, I work for the city of Chicago. I work with thousands and thousands of people at the airport. But more people know me than I know them because of the job and the role that I'm in. It doesn't mean they know me personally, but they know of me. So I really believe that this guy knew George Floyd. This is me. And I think he has some kind of deep-seated hatred for him or discontent or dislike. And I believe I heard that George Floyd was dating a Caucasian lady, and I believe he was upset about that. And then I believe he and this lady may have had a relationship. It angered him because that had to be some deep hate to suffocate someone. So,
well, that's interesting because I'll be honest, Shawn, I haven't heard a fraction of some of the stuff like they may have had any kind of interaction beyond what happened in that incident. I'd not heard that. So that part would be a new piece to me. That probably I didn't. By the way, I did not watch the trial.
Me either.
I wasn't interested. It took me months to actually watch the video. So that piece for me would be new information. Okay. And it still doesn't change how I feel about the situation. Here's a part that I think that people need to put in perspective where we stand right now as a country.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to policing. We exist in a vacuum where we like to put things in dichotomies.
Yes.
It's left, it's right, it's black, it's white, and no, it's not. In the scope of my job, and I personally know police officers that I think are exceptional at their job. In fact, I know people who work for DC who had to deal with everything that happened at the Capitol.
Yes.
So with that being said, and I've had people in my family who were actually police officers. Yes. So I don't exist in this vacuum of believing that all police officers are bad based on one person's behavior.
Right.
The issue is that it takes only one bad apple to taint what people think. But unfortunately, we've been on this trajectory for a while. And the trajectory has been when you have had police officers behave poorly, they've not been held accountable. And now we've gotten to a point that no matter what happens, people want an instantaneous response to be punishment. Well, no, because we really have to look at every situation individually to determine what's right and what's not right. And I'm the kind of person, I won't just lump everybody together because I don't believe in that. I don't.
Right.
There's always going to be a part of me that's rational. It's going to be like, no, 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 no. Because if you and I were put in a position where we work with piss poor people who didn't do their job, guess
Yeah.
what happens? We don't want to be lumped in with the piss poor people who didn't do their job. So,
True.
because I can put that in perspective, um, when I finally watched the video, it legitimately broke my heart. It
Yeah.
actually kind of took me back to Rodney King,
Mm-hmm.
which was really hard to watch. Like, how does that happen?
Yes.
And there was no way that it could be any other verdict. But I keep warning people,
Mm.
we're not exactly where we should be because the actual sentence has not been rolled out.
Not as of yet.
It's up to 40 years is what could be punished by what happened. And now it comes down to, you will see what justice looks like, because I told somebody anything less than 30 or 35 years without parole doesn't work for me,
Mm.
because you extinguish someone's life
Yeah.
in a way that wasn't acceptable.
And
So if you only have to serve 10 or 15, 20 years,
yeah.
you get to go back to life as you know it, that doesn't work for me. But if you get up to at least 30 to 35 years with no parole, that's serious punishment. And the mental piece that goes into that is really hard. So now the actual sentencing part will show us where we stand in regards to justice.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at with that. But we've had things in Chicago that we're still dealing with, because
Yeah.
we're broadcasting out of Chicago. And again, you have to look at everything individually, and that's what I challenge people to do.
Yeah.
If it looks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, then it's probably a duck. Damn it! And sometimes people get really upset. I know I'm one to ruffle feathers with this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
You know me, Shawn.
So what do you think? What would be your feelings if they said, or they considered the death penalty for him? How would you feel about that?
See, I have to roll back the idea of Hammurabi's code, which is an eye for an eye.
Yeah, just thinking an eye for an eye.
I'm gonna tell you something. At the core of who I am, I'm old school. I'm probably ancient in some ways in my belief systems, but we don't function that way anymore, so we can't do it. And so that's why I said, for me, if we were still rolling out the death penalty, I'd kind of be okay with it, because it wasn't like we questioned if he actually extinguished someone's life. But we don't. So for me, it needs to be at least a minimum of 30 to 35 years, which means at that point, his life is pretty much over. He's living in a vacuum that's not, you took away something from someone else. So I can take that. But anything less than that doesn't work for me. But I'm not going to tell you that I was anti-death penalty, especially when it's a proven fact that someone has extinguished someone else's life or multiple lives, like someone like John Wayne Gacy. There was no question of what he did. You know what I mean? So my question is, why are we exactly trying to take care of him for X amount of years?
Exactly.
But it seems so primitive, because we're supposed to move beyond that concept. So
we're supposed to have love and compassion.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm born in the wrong time. But well, I'm just saying, if you can so easily extinguish another life without any care or concern, I would then ask you, why do you expect for me to feel differently about it, especially if it's proven? But this is why this is not in my hands. This is why I would never be an attorney, because to be authentic and honest, I could never represent someone who I knew legitimately committed murder. That would be hard for me. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you being the more spiritual, the more religious and spiritual person, I'm a practicing Buddhist. So I try to find balance and peace.
You do.
I do. But how do you feel about that?
You know what? My Christianity convicts me a lot of times with a lot of things. I have this fire in me that I really try to suppress, which I'm sure you've seen. I try to look for the upbeat, the easy road. I'm gonna forgive. I'm not gonna forget, but I'll forgive and I'll treat you better. However, it takes a lot really to get me there. And once you get me there, it's like this Taurian in me explodes. And you just don't want to meet that.
Oh, wait, did you just say you were a Taurus? You were a Taurus?
Yes, I am.
So right there, folks. Right there. There you go.
You know, even with what happened is very tragic because not only was the life extinguished, but there's a little girl now growing up with her father. The family dynamic. You have to look at the family dynamic. I was just telling my oldest son yesterday, the things that you do in life are not just about you.
Hmm.
There are people that are attached to you
Hmm.
that are affected by your choices and the decisions you make. So you have to be thoughtful and considerate when you make these choices and these decisions, just to ensure that if there is hurt that is caused, it's not a trickle down effect to affect your mom or your dad or your siblings, you know. So although Christ calls us to forgive at all costs, no matter what it
That's
is.
interesting. We got a post from somebody. Marcus Rogers says, "Does Christianity cause you to forgive those who truly show evil?"
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And scripture indicates that you have to do it 70 times 7 in one day. So that's 490 times. So yes, it does. And I know that's difficult. If Maya's saying no, pull out the daggers and the pew pew pew. I don't we have to, Maya. I told you we have to. We have
You
to.
know what's interesting about that? So I'm going to throw a monkey wrench into this for people who are really religious. And I'm not. I'm a spiritual person. I'm not a religious person. The construct of religion doesn't work for me because it's man-made, and I'm sorry. That's just how I feel. So I can say that tonight because it's late night. So I can be like I can be Maya and really say what I think. But if you really look at the Bible and how things are constructed, people were punished for bad behavior.
That's true.
People were punished for bad behavior. And remember, people acted within certain constraints for religious standpoints because they didn't want to be outside of their community, which was religiously based. Now, look at a world where religious constraints no longer exist.
Hmm.
It has no influence. So, you having this mindset is not the same society that happened, let's say, 500 years ago. It's a whole different game plan.
That's,
Unless you're a Jehovah Witness and allegedly you don't want to be outside, you don't want to be excommunicated if you do something wrong. But I'm just saying.
yeah. But you know what? People were charged back in the day for doing things wrong back in biblical times, but they were charged by other people. And people are going to err and they're going to make mistakes. But we always have to remember to error is human, to forgive is divine. And Christ calls us to forgive. There's no way in the world that we can walk around and ask God for all of these wonderful things, to ask Him to bless us and help us and forgive us, and you hold and harbor hate and anger in your heart. You got to let it go.
I'm pretty sure
And you have to.
I know I have an express ticket to hell. I'm already gonna say this. I already know I do because, like you said, to forgive
No.
is divine. I'm gonna be honest about this though. At the same time, if someone does something that's an atrocity, for me to act like it didn't happen and say, "Oh, it's okay," no, it's not okay. I struggle with that. Hence, I'm not a very. I'm sure my passport for hell is probably stamped, but
Oh, Lord Jesus. Help us, Lord. Help us. No, it's not.
But I'm okay.
No.
Look, I believe right is wrong is wrong. Unless somehow you are so removed from your egregious act,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm flexible. And I'm gonna tell you something. And working in a field where people are frequently impaired and make poor choices,
Mm-hmm.
you don't get a pass from me because of your poor choices. We still need to give a modification. There still needs to be punishment for what you did. Whether you say you were in tune with it or not, it doesn't matter.
Oh,
Because that's just how I feel about that. It's like we can't just keep giving a pass. There is no monopoly go past jail cards when you extinguish life. There's just not. For me, there's not.
okay.
But but I'm just here it goes. Maya, you've always had a fire in your soul. Yes, Janine. Hello, how are you? These are people who know me all the way back to Janine's. I went to school with Janine's sister, and we were in kindergarten, so we know each other really, really well. That's just me though. But I just feel like you have to be accountable for your actions, Shawn, even when you make bad choices. So I'm not saying we may throw at you the book if you
Right.
if you were impaired in some way, because
Right.
let's be honest, addiction is a demon. It is.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't get to get just an absolute free pass because of addiction. I still need for you to be accountable for your actions because you still at some point made a choice to
Well,
do.
Maya, you know what?
Mm.
I grapple. I'm going back and forth here because I love you. I see Exernona tuned in, so we want to give her a shout out. Hi.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I really feel like there's an exception to every rule. People will make mistakes. People will do things wrong. You can't condemn a person and punish them even if the behavior um, is something that causes grief, pain, or suffering. You have to get to that point. Don't get me wrong, but give me a prime example.
I'll ask you something. If it results in death to someone,
Mm.
where do you draw the line in the sand? Because I feel like I'm going to shift the conversation a bit because this gets real. It gets real intricate. Let's talk about gun control.
Oh, pew pew pew.
Boom, boom, boom. Let's be honest. Gun control is not really about the guns. It's about the people
Who have the guns?
who have the guns.
Yeah,
You can't begin to truly restrict something because guns don't kill people. I'm going to subscribe to this all the time.
yeah.
People kill people. So the bottom line is that you may secure a gun when you are in your right mental frame of mind. But let's say 5, 10 years from now, something happens and it shifts. The gun is never the perpetrator. It's always the person who pulls the trigger. So this is why trying to have gun control law
Mm-hmm.
in a society who still wants to have guns is complicated.
It's
Because
very
at the core of the issue, it's about people.
yes, it is. It is. So, are you pro gun? Or are you anti gun?
I'm indifferent. Okay, this is how it works for me. I don't own a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make me comfortable. And I hope I never am in a situation where that becomes an issue. I don't particularly care for guns, but I also don't feel that I need to restrict somebody else's rights to it because I still realize at the core of it, Shawn,
Mm-hmm.
it's about people. Now, in Japan, for instance, where guns are legal, they have a system that's a lot different. They are frequently checking up on people and what they're doing when they have a gun license.
Okay.
But let's be honest, their population doesn't look like our population. So they can check in with those people every single year.
And see,
Now,
no.
and see how they're doing. Now, for us, the catch becomes if you end up in a hospital for mental health reasons,
Mm-hmm.
at least within Illinois, I cannot speak to this for every state.
Right.
There is a responsibility to report to the state that you have a mental health hospitalization, which probably means you're going to lose your FOID. But I can't speak to every state because I don't know how it works in every state. So there is that ball gets put in motion if something sets it in place. But that may not be the case state to state. But to be honest, by the time you come see me in the ER, the damage might already be done, truth be told.
Yeah. Because you're at that point, emergency situation. You're in an emergency room. Something has gone horribly wrong. What I'll say is, I'm down the middle of the road now. I used to be anti-gun. I don't want them around me. I don't want to see it. But we have moved into a society now where we need to protect ourselves. And I'm opening up my eyes. And I had the opportunity to go to a firearms institute when I went vacationing. And I was all geared up and ready. And I was ready to pull the trigger. And I got in there and I froze. I forgot that even though I was preparing myself mentally to get ready to go through this process, and I had the instructor there telling me what I needed to do, I didn't channel in my mind that the people a couple stalls over didn't have to wait for me to mentally get ready.
Right?
They're letting loose, and I was like a nervous basket. When I got there, I said, "Okay, I'm ready to go now." And the instructor's like, "Oh, we just got here," and I'm like, "Well." I paid for 2 hours, and I'm like, well, how long have we been here? And they're like 3 minutes, and I'm like, oh,
Whole 3 minutes, and you were. I mean, but see, that's my thing about. See, here's the thing. I'll be honest. If I had a weapon, I clearly feel like I could be totally competent with it.
okay.
I'm not a panic person. In fact, I thrive under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a time I would tell you about 6 months ago that I actually thought about maybe getting a gun because I had an interaction that made me super uncomfortable. someone approached me and was very threatening at a gas station, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Right.
And as a woman, I was like, "This is crazy." Not that I would have shot them, but I was like, "What happens if that person would have followed me or created an issue?" And then I had other issues with people close to me. I had a person had a gun pulled on them, like at a situation where he lives in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
He stopped at a 7-Eleven to get something after doing an event he was at, and a person approached him, was very irate and put a gun to his face.
Wow.
I had a situation where I had a family member who works in a situation where a person um, was being anti. I don't want to wear a mask, but because of where the person worked, it was required, and he tried to like intimidate him by showing him a gun. And there were times I had to think about, do I need to arm myself? And I was like, this is not the world I want to live in.
I
This
don't.
is
I,
this is not in it for me. And I made a decision, and I hope I don't come to regret it,
mhm.
that though I think I can be a very responsible person with a gun, and I'm gonna tell you something, if I get one, I'm gonna know how to shoot it.
Definitely.
But I just don't want to feel like I have to do that because the world has taken a turn for the worse because we've refused to address issues that have been long standing.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that person. I don't.
Do you know when I was at the range, I, I was coached, I was prompted, I was talked to. Do you know the only way that I was able to actually shoot the weapons that I had is when I thought in my mind, I must protect my sons. Leave my sons alone. Then I was able to pew, pew, pew. But before that, I was just frozen.
So you had to have something that became the driving force, the motivator for you.
Exactly.
That's interesting because I don't necessarily function from that position. I mean, I don't have children, obviously, so I don't have that. I don't have that need to protect, but I believe that desire to protect could make people be a bit more specific in
Oh,
their
yeah.
goals.
Oh, yes.
Um,
Yes. Because if it was just me, I was standing there, was something about the weight. I can't remember if I had a 9 millimeter. It was the weight of the weapon that froze me. It was heavy. I was afraid to pull the trigger because I knew in my subconscious pulling the trigger could end a life or whoever is on the opposite end.
mm,
So I couldn't, even though I was just there with a sheet of paper at the other end, I couldn't make myself pull the trigger.
mhm.
But when I thought, okay, I have to get tough. Where's Tough Tina? Find her. I'm sitting there with, I believe it was an AR-15.
What?
And yeah, because I couldn't, and that's the crazy thing. I couldn't shoot the handgun because I was too fearful. But
You
with
couldn't shoot. You couldn't shoot a Glock.
I couldn't. But with the AR-15, with the scope and the light, that just made sense to me.
So your inner like gun child is like a sniper. Okay.
I must be. I must be. So I sit there, and I'll go get my little gun demo to show everybody on if we have a
You
break.
might need to post that. That's interesting. I've never actually shot a gun. I haven't. I have this real aversion to extinguishing life. I don't like hunting.
Okay.
Um, I'll be honest.
When I,
Anything that passes away in front of me, I have this deep seated emotion to. So I don't believe in hunting. I'm sure at some point I'll probably be a vegetarian at some point.
now
Because and
I'm
if
a beef.
I'm,
Where's
I disagree. I guarantee you, if you saw how brutal that can be, you might change your mind. But you have to see it to make you
yeah,
change. But
yeah,
see that. But that's my mindset about this world. You have to see things in action. People had to see what happened with George Floyd to get that this was okay. So I'm gonna dial this back a couple years.
okay.
Kaepernick takes a knee
Yeah,
about the injustice of black and brown people by police. Black
yes,
and brown people have known this for a while.
yes.
I've had my fair share of run-ins only from a traffic stop, and I was like, it was so extra. I was like, um, so I turned into the wrong lane, and you're pulling me over. But it doesn't matter because if you break the law, you break the law.
Exactly.
So when everybody was up and they were angry about it, and they made it about literally veterans, but we all know that it wasn't about veterans. Here's what never came out in the rhetoric about Colin Kaepernick. He sat down with the 49ers and talked about what he wanted to do, and they agreed. So this wasn't like an uncalculated act. It
Yeah.
was how people responded to it And I don't think the 49ers even thought. It became an anthem protest. It became about veterans. It was like it was never
About
about that. And if you actually listen to the anthem, there's all kind of reasons why black and brown people should not be okay with it. Because when you get into the second verse that we don't sing, it's very aggressive and wrong.
I
But
don't
that's another story because most
I
people
don't
don't
sing
ever.
to the anthem either.
But people don't get. They've never heard the second verse of it, so they don't get. It talks about if you just listen to it. I'm just going to say that. So when you put that into a perspective, he actually was giving you a highlight of what was to come
Yes.
without even knowing it. Because he's not, I always tell people, nice guy. He's a loose advocate, but being an activist is another story.
Yes, it is.
It's a whole nother story. And about 2.5 years ago, me and my father did a civil rights movement trip where we went to the house of Medgar Evers where he was shot.
Wow.
And that was crazy to me to see how he lived.
Wow.
We did a whole bunch of stuff. But the bottom line is that people don't get that when you make a decision to like legitimately protect yourself,
Mm-hmm.
there's reasons. And I always tell people, I think I have lived in a vacuum for a long time.
Sheltered.
I mean, no. I wasn't sheltered. My family didn't lie about the world.
Oh.
But I'm going to say this. I was never truly a victim of being mistreated.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I hate to say this, I fell into that barrel of people that was socially acceptable. I'm gonna say that flat out. I'm gonna own it. I can tell you that I have not been called out of my name very much, seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But I've not heard the N word drop so much in my entire life in the past week in my job, and it didn't blow my mind. And some people were really upset about it. And I was like, well, I was taught not to be upset about that because that's not who I am. But the level of aggression and that we're seeing in this country is so uncomfortable, Shawn.
It is. It is.
It was the very thing that made me think that maybe I should get a gun when I was at a gas station and someone approached me and was really aggressive. And I was like, okay. And I didn't, no, mind you, being M.A.Y.A, Little Savage is my nickname. I don't show fear. And I didn't back down.
Right.
Now, mind you, had they pulled out a gun, I might have been a little different. But they didn't. It was verbal, and I didn't back down. I was like, "Who are you talking to? You better get on my face." I mean, I was like straight about it, and they left me alone.
Yeah.
But I had this thought: but what if they follow me? And I drove for like a good 30 minutes
Mm-hmm.
before I went home,
Okay.
just because I wanted to make sure I was okay.
And they weren't following you. I would have drove them right to the popo, to the police station.
I mean, and that's the kind of the climate.
Mm-hmm. I was reading before I got off work tonight. The news alerts I was saying that pop on the phone. So many horrible, heinous things are happening, and then it's not like just one demographic. People are doing it to elderly people. They're doing it to children, to mothers. It's too much. It's like too much for me, and it's like I'm grieving for people that I don't even know. I read 2 articles today. One was a a group of children, 12, 11, and 9. Their parents were starving them, holding them hostage in the attic of their home. And when they did feed them, they fed them molded food. It bothered me. Why, when there's so many people who want children, just pick them up if you don't want to do it. But that's because they're mentally unstable and it hasn't been addressed. Mental health is at an all-time crisis in America. People are bonkers.
I'm gonna tell you something, Shawn. This is the thing that I always tell people. I'm gonna stick to this like glue. Shed your idea of political parties because they don't serve to the benefit of the country. And there's a lot of founding fathers who didn't really believe in it. Honestly, there's a reason why we got rid of the Whigs and the Tories. If you know your history, when I say the Whigs and the Tories, and I don't mean lace front either, but some people will get that, and some people will not.
Okay.
But what's interesting is when I try to have a conversation, I'm gonna tell you something. I had a conversation with a person. I looked at her like, okay, about meth. There's been a rise in methamphetamines. Lately, I've seen more meth people. Now, PCP has been on the rise for a minute. We know what heroin has been like. And her response to me was, well, because we don't defend our borders, and that's where the meth is coming from. And I looked at her and I said, Dude, meth labs have been like rampant, especially in rural areas for a minute. It's got
Yes,
nothing to do with the border,
for
but she's
years.
buying into a methodology that comes from a certain political party person. I'm not gonna call names, but you know what I'm talking about. And
I
I
do.
was like, and she was like not willing to accept the idea that meth labs had been running rampant for more than 5 years in
Oh,
this
yeah.
country. And they
Oh,
weren't border based. They were community based. And there were meth labs that were being busted. And
in people's kitchens,
I'm looking at her like, and you
homes.
yet
Yes.
somehow want to attribute this to somebody else. We are very fragmented as a country. Real talk.
Yep.
But if you want to deflect and put it on somebody else, we don't solve our problems. I mean, I'm say this. I wanted to say, let me give you an example then. Lock down your borders and see if meth stops. It won't.
It won't.
It won't, because it's been going rampant for more than 5 years, and they've been busting labs in people's like kitchens for a long time that are U.S. based. And
It's,
I'm looking at this like, but there's a political conversation, and I'm really serious about this. I feel that politics is decisive,
yeah.
and it pulls people into respective positions that I think aren't healthy. And I'm like, if you're not, here's all that matters to me. If we want to change and grow as a country,
Hmm.
it doesn't matter where the source of the angst is. Let's deal with it.
But that's the problem. Nobody wants to deal with it. Nobody wants to deal with the monster in the room. Everybody wants to avoid it. And they want to say it doesn't affect me and my household. I'm going to stay in my lane,
Oh, yes.
my
So,
business. And that's how it is.
great series is Snowfall. I think it's AMC. I don't know. It's on my like kind of like listing of shows I watch.
Okay.
And this has always been the issue within this country, and people don't want to honestly own it. And I'm like, I don't care if you own it or not. It is what it is. Until something rolls into certain communities and they get affected, I'll flat out say it. I'm gonna be honest, white people. Until things affect white people,
Hmm.
it's not a point of concern. Cocaine, crack cocaine in the 80s was huge in the black community. Seriously, it was. And actually a little bit of opium was in there too.
Hmm.
But it wasn't crack cocaine. And there's a difference between crack cocaine and just sniffing cocaine.
Right.
Two different things. Cocaine was looked at as being okay if you sniff cocaine, but crack was a poor man's drug. But until things like crack cocaine rolled into other communities, oh, and heroin made a comeback like nobody expected.
Hmm.
And PCP has made a comeback like nobody expected. Do you know that you can get a bag of heroin for like $5 a pop?
Really?
That's why heroin is so rampant, because it's super cheap.
Oh, that explains some things. And my
But until heroin
oh
began
no,
to
wait, let me clarify that. I didn't have my run in with heroin. I just want to clarify that.
Oh no, well I know it because it's the scope of my job, but I'm just saying,
Yes.
until certain things cross over to certain communities, nobody cares. But here's the thing, we're not supposed to talk about that because we're still at our demarcation points about race. And this is why I tell people all the time, you do realize until we have a legitimate conversation about race in this country, and it's not about placing blame, Shawn, it's beyond that. It's about understanding what happened. Here's the thing. No, you did not put my family in shackles, nor am I in shackles, but it still doesn't change the fact that systematic racism exists, and it's perpetuated frequently. And I see it. And I can tell you honestly, Shawn,
It's alive and well.
it's alive and well, and I can't say that I've actually really been subjected to that much of it, but I see it.
That's
But
because
I see it.
That's because you're lighter. You got to step to the brown side.
Excuse me, I think I'm very brown.
No, I'm not saying you're not brown. I'm saying you haven't been affected by it because society as a whole, they frown on the darker complexion more so than the lighter complexion.
I don't disagree with that, because I had this conversation with my dad, who was lighter than me. And I said, you know, you made it up a ladder so easily because guess what? Nobody realized that you were even black.
Wow.
So I get it. So
What you say?
he tried to be argumentative about it, because, you know, we get sensitive when people say things like that to us. When you question our blackness,
Mm-hmm.
and no one really questions my blackness necessarily. I know that Latino people know I'm a half Latino. They see it. Black people are like, oh, you know, we have a spectrum within our race, what people look like. But generally speaking, Latino people will know that I'm Latino. He got a little in his feelings about it, but I get it, because my dad is from a generation of segregation, and he can't help who he is or what he looks like or what his advantage was. And that's the thing about privilege. We
Mm.
have covered the gamut, and we're like about 15 minutes from ending this show. We didn't know we would go an hour, but I think we're gonna make it.
You know what, Maya? We just don't do what we do.
We gonna make it. We gonna make it an hour. I'm gonna tell you something about privilege. For everybody who struggles with the idea of privilege, privilege exists in every realm. I'm gonna tell you why. It isn't just about white privilege, because yes, white privilege is real. There are certain things as white people that you get a caveat to that people with color do not. Um,
Give us an example for those who don't know.
I'm gonna give you an example. White people are not looked at as being homogenous.
Hmm.
They're looked at as that's trailer trash over there. That's got nothing to do with me. Black people get lumped into a group, and you got to work to get your way out the group and be like, "Excuse you."
Like, it's not me. I'm not a part of that.
Nope. That's one privilege right there with being white, that you don't get lumped in together. That people that are minorities, we get lumped in together all the time, and we have to work to prove that we are individuals, though we shouldn't.
Or that we're capable, or that we're good enough, or just that merely we're enough.
So that's a basic concept of privilege when it comes to white people. Now, mind you, there's privilege that comes with gender.
Oh yeah.
Men can do things that women have to work so hard to get privilege to be able to do.
Just like fair wages. But that's a whole nother show.
Fair wages. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you something. There is privilege that's even constructed with height and weight. Let's be honest. If you happen to be overweight, we're body shaming. You got to work on that. We're trying to still put that in the scope that is acceptable to not be thin. If you are let's be honest. Everybody's not gonna be a waif. That's not your build.
It's not.
But body shaming was huge in our society.
Especially in the 80s. I remember I wanted to be a flight attendant. And because I'm
Girl, you was too short.
because I'm
A luggage would drop on your head. You ain't about to be a flight attendant.
they told me I was too short. And she told me I needed to lose about 60 pounds because I needed to be 105. So
I was about 105 in 8th grade. I'm going to tell you something. And if I even saw 105, I'm about to be 50 next year. I would look like I was on crack. I'm going to tell you that.
and I was thinking to myself, oh, you want me to look like a bobblehead. That's not going to work for me.
Well, look, let's be honest. There's different frames. There's endomorphic, ectomorphic, but that's things that society doesn't know about. Yeah. So it's funny that there's privilege based on being thin. I'll be honest. A simple privilege is based on being pretty. Let's be honest. People who are deemed to be attractive get different benefits and acceptance in society than people who are not.
Yes, that is true.
That's reality. So privilege exists. Let's be honest. There's privilege within being educated at a certain level.
True.
There's privilege with social economic status.
Yes, it is.
And up until about now, there was privilege with your sexual orientation, if you want to know the truth.
Yes, it is.
There's privilege everywhere.
Everywhere. Every facet of life. Even with your children. People whose children are smarter or more athletic or more attractive may go further. And when then you see the kids that you say, oh, bless her heart, because you don't know what it's supposed to say. So that's true. How do we get past all of this? How do we get past this in society to make a better world? That's my goal. I want to make a better world while I'm here. I want to put an imprint here and sew the fabric of humanity together. So how do we do this, Mike?
Oh, God, I can say this because I'm not doing therapy right now. We need an extinction level event.
No.
Yes, because unfortunately, human nature is so ingrained. And when you talk about dominant society, now, mind you, we're trying to make this shift. And I always say, I think it takes younger people to be able to be that shift. So maybe 20 or 30 years from now, the things that we talk about as issues, because if you think about it, despite the fact that we think we still have racial issues in this country, it's complicated, but we have taken some steps forward. And I'm going to flat out tell you this. If it wasn't for people that I grew up with, like the Angie Lehmans and the Robin Ward Curtises of the world, to know that race had nothing, it was a learned behavior, because those were people that I grew up with from kindergarten. I knew through 12th grade, and they like M.A.Y.A for M.A.Y.A. They know M.A.Y.A, and they don't see M.A.Y.A as just a black person. If it wasn't for those people and some new relationships along the way I've met with people, it would be really hard for me to accept the world that we're in. And I always say, if you never had that benefit of meeting people who accept you for you, and they don't pigeonhole you, they don't put you in this silo, it's complicated. So I want to believe that with every generation, and we can see it in this country, with every generation we've gotten better, but for some reason we've taken about 10 steps back. But
Yeah.
I think it's because the likes of people like us and our age group are still around. So
But
I want to say that younger people will be the change. They'll be the catalyst. That's just how I feel.
I'm in hopes and in prayer for that. I don't know. There are some young people that I currently work with. I don't know what's happening. Where's the thought process? I listen. It was a time when I was coming up, and I don't want to tell my age. We'll play that. Guess.
Why? I just put out I was 50, almost 50. Why are you worried about it?
I was going to say we can play the guess what Shonda's age is at the end of that.
I'm
People.
gonna go with black don't crack. So whatever. I'm working that
It
because
was. It was a time, Maya, when I was coming up. You just certain things you just didn't do. You didn't curse around the senior citizens. You weren't disrespectful.
true.
You stayed in your lane. You did what you were supposed to. You kept your mouth closed until you were addressed. You didn't send under grown people, have conversation. You didn't feel like, I have a problem when people are in their 20s and they're in the same age group as my children and they feel like they could stand in front of me and curse and be vulgar. I have an issue with that. It's like I need you to slow down and I need you to recognize that I'm old enough to be your mother. And where's the respect level? I don't know how they're going to lead us anyway or anywhere when sometimes they don't respect themselves.
I mean, I do think that way sometimes too, but I'm going to believe that there's a learning curve to everything.
Okay.
And the learning curve that they're in is different than the learning curve that we were in. So I'm gonna have faith in the fact that we can't mirror them to us because they live in a different world. They do. Information, how they are socialized from everything. It's different. It's different than what it was for us. So we have to expect that as they mature, that they're going to make those transitions moving forward. That's the best I can do. I don't have any children. I have cats, and they're very well adjusted, and I have faith in that. So
Fatima, yay, she's the leader of the pack.
Fatima, no, Franklin is the matriarch. There's Fatima and there's Freddie, and I feel like they're well adjusted. But no, not to be silly, but we have to step back, and this is even as a therapist, I step back, and when I deal with kids, I'll get kids that come in, they'll be like just off the chain, cursing, talking to their parents in a way that I absolutely cannot understand. And I walk in and look at them like they have three heads. And generally speaking, I tend to get what I need from them, though their parents may not, but that's here nor there. In the moment, it's easy to make things happen.
Okay.
But I also believe, for everyone who has kids or grandkids, pass this along, children crave structure.
Yes, they do.
They crave direction. And when parents try to appease them with material things or being their friends, all you're doing is negating a process that needs to be in place. That will happen as they get to be older. You will become their friend. Giving a kid too much doesn't compensate. So I'm sorry, if you went through a divorce and now you're separated, you giving your kid everything they want doesn't change the situation. That they don't have a mother and a father that sit in the same household. So what you need to do is address how you can strike a balance that doesn't turn into negative compensation, negative reinforcement, Pavlov. But that's what's interesting because people feel like I have to compensate for the fact that you don't have this. And it's hard. I mean, it's difficult. But I always tell people that there are resources out there if you reach for them. So I'll give I'm the mental maven, as I said on the show.
Mental maven.
And I'll say there are resources out there. If you struggle with the direction you should go in, then I would say if you're not in therapy to figure out how to navigate certain waters, you should be. And you should put your children there too, because life changes happen all the time. So whether it's a divorce, whether it's death, sometimes we don't understand. Not sometimes. We legitimately don't know how to deal with those kind of changes. And we shouldn't expect that we should. It doesn't matter what our parents did.
Yeah.
There are now resources that say, look, reach out, get help. You don't have to navigate these waters by yourself.
True.
Let's talk about how to make this work. And I find that people who kind of approach it that way, I'm not saying it's always easy because kids can be a handful. They can.
Yes, they can.
Oh my goodness, they can. I've seen it. I've seen it, and I was like, Jesus, I'm so glad I didn't reproduce.
And you think as they get older, it gets easier, but
It
it's
gets yes,
difficult as they get older. So,
because remember, children have really poor emotional intelligence.
mhm.
So even though they behave as if they're very adult-like and they can make the right choices, we have to keep in the front of our mind that they're still children and they don't have the proper emotional intelligence and or emotional regulation like they want us to believe that they do, because they live in a world who makes them believe that they can make really good choices and they only need a stipend to do it. So I want to make choices, but I want you to like fund me while I'm doing it. No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, yeah,
So much. Oh God, I feel like we've gone around the world
we have. Well,
tonight.
yeah, we didn't talk about Meghan Markle and Harry.
No, you know what? They don't really belong to our grouping, so you know. But
Well,
we can get to that next week
now,
about real expectations, about real expectations.
Megan is a sister. How could you say that? Although she may have just recently realized that.
I'm not. It's not for me to judge. I'm gonna let that sit where it is. And I'm not. Look, I don't know the woman. I don't know the woman, so it's it's not it's not for me to judge. Um, I do believe you can't go into that situation being removed from facts. That's just how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I also think at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
she's never really been challenged that way. I'm gonna say this about her because we're about 4 minutes, 3 minutes now from winding down the show.
Wow.
I know, right? A whole hour, just you and me, flapping our gums the whole time. But by the way, we kept a good audience the whole time.
We don't flap gums. We kiki.
Well, we kept a good audience the whole time. But
But I bet you people were engaged.
we did. We kept a good audience the whole time. But it's interesting because when it's all said and done,
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you it was the first time in Meghan Markle's life that she's ever been challenged the way that she has in regards to race.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not equipped to deal with someone telling you're a black person,
Mm-hmm.
your experience, she grew up in California and they didn't think she was really black. That was a different experience for her. So hence I can understand where the struggle comes from. I can get that piece. I can totally get it.
You know what I think? I think now that, and I'm not saying that he was the person who was the catalyst behind everything that happened with Harry and Meghan, but I'm wondering now that Prince Philip is here no more, will the Queen bend a little bit? Will she be a little softer? Will she open her arms now to welcome them back? Because her family's getting kind of small, and from what I read, nobody went to her birthday. Harry, uh, his
William.
brother William, Kate, nobody.
Well, well, it's interesting because remember, like mortality makes you put everything in a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, when you lose people, I can attest to this.
Yes.
It makes you see the world from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Regret. Um, you wish you could have done things differently.
Yes.
If you had a second chance.
Mm-hmm.
And she's still here to make a. And by the way, they did agree to allow him to marry her. I don't think they knew what was coming with it. So it's a different perspective. So we'll see. I believe we'll see a shift a bit. I can see that. I can see a shift.
I hope they welcome them back. See, I'm always looking for that happy ending. They cut them off. They don't have anything. They're out here in the world.
But I'm gonna put it out there. But who was the fallback? Black people.
Yeah.
When they got cut off with their funds from the royal family, guess who ran to the rescue? I got to put this out there.
Come on.
Tyler Perry was like, "Come stay in LA, and I'll make sure you keep your security detail." Oprah was there. Black people will always make up the slack, even when we feel like you maybe have put us on the fringes a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We always step up to say, okay, we got your back, even though I think you a little extra. But, you know.
Well, I can't really say that because I kind of feel like Oprah could have done more.
No, she did enough. Hey, that's not her child.
For the community. No, for the Black community. I'm
okay, but now that's another conversation, and we're like about 15 seconds for having to wrap up the show. What's your final thoughts, host? I'm going off screen now. I'll see you guys next week.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in to the lovely ladies of late night. This is our first episode. We have 2 more members that will be joining the cast, and we'll go forward. We'll come up with new creative stories, ideas, and we would love for you to continue to tune in. I see a lot of messages down here in the chat box. We look forward to responding to those. We want you to tune in when we have the celebrities and just enjoy being with us. Have a great night. Thank you.